The aged Elizabeth hosts an aerobics show on television, motivating viewers to move. After filming at an anniversary party, she encounters an art installation. The toilet doesn't work. Unable to figure out whether it's art or a warning, she goes to the neighboring men's room. While in the stall, Elizabeth accidentally overhears a phone conversation between a producer who dreams of replacing her with a young girl. Later, during lunch with Harvey, while discussing her resignation from her job, she sees a fly in her wine glass, symbolically reminding her of her own immersion in a sweet life, not realizing its approaching end. On her way home, she accidentally knocks over an advertising poster with her face on it and gets into an accident. Despite the fact that she got away with minor injuries in the hospital, the woman sobs from powerlessness. A young resident lets her go home, putting a flash drive with a note in her coat pocket. On the way out, she meets her former classmate Fred, who invites her for a drink and gives her his number on a test form after dropping it in a puddle. At home, Elizabeth watches a video on a flash drive that describes an injection of a substance that can create a clone of her DNA in whose body she can live every other week. At first, thinking this is a silly scenario, she throws the flash drive away. But in the evening, after a few martinis, she picks up the flash drive and decides to call the number to order the drug. The next morning, she receives a text message with an order number to pick up at a specified address. As is typical for dealers of illegal drugs, the delivery location is located in the ghetto, in an abandoned garage. Opening the door, Elizabeth makes her way inside and finds the corporation's logos on the walls. After picking up a package with her number on it, she returns home. Inside the box are devices for activating the substance, one for the younger version, the other for the older one. The instructions state that the bodies should be changed every week, reminding us that both versions are one and the same. After reading the instructions, Elizabeth takes the injection in the bathroom, but first she looks skeptically in the mirror. Lying on the floor, she begins to shake until her pupils split and a new body begins to form through her spinal column. The younger version of Elizabeth, seeing herself in the mirror, feels the urge to go to a party and seduce someone right away. Not believing her changed eyes, she looks at herself and sees a familiar mole. After the transformation, the younger version sews up the wound on the old version's back, connects her to a nutritional formula, and goes to bed. The next morning, she notices a casting call for an aerobics instructor and attends in a gorgeous swimsuit, landing a new job. The producer, Harvey, is impressed with her looks and thinks the audience will love her sad story about her sick mother. The next day, she has a photo shoot, and after that, her face is all over the city. During the week, she rehearses and updates her wardrobe. At the end of the week, the younger version returns home, where she uses catheters and needles to exchange blood with the original Elizabeth, who is connected to a nutrient solution. In the process of renewal, the younger version begins to plan renovations and creates a secret room where she hides the original version of herself, as well as a painting of herself that reminds her of old memories. The following week, the younger version of Elizabeth continues her career and, taking advantage of the attention, enters into a romantic relationship. However, having lost control of time, she spends too long in the arms of her new gentleman, and the older version runs out of power, causing the younger version to bleed from the nose. To keep the fun going, the younger version returns to the hidden room and breaks the instructions by taking too much cerebrospinal fluid to stabilize herself, continuing to stay in the new body for an extra day. This leads to a nightmare in which Elizabeth begins to see herself disfigured. When she wakes up, she sees things scattered around the apartment, left over from last night's entertainment. While cleaning up, she notices that one of her fingers has turned black. Over time, she realizes that the substance abuse has an irreversible effect and that events are out of her control. Dissatisfied with what is happening, Elizabeth is cleaning her apartment when she notices a show on TV. A neighbor knocks on the door and invites her in for a cup of tea. However, Elizabeth shyly goes to get her next dose of the drug, looking around. Entering a cafe, she meets an old man who says that it is getting harder and harder to wait a week each time. The woman recognizes him as the orderly who planted the flash drive and runs away in terror. Finally, the old man asks if the second version of her has learned to eat. To make herself feel beautiful and desirable again, Elizabeth finds a classmate's number to arrange a date. However, seeing a poster of Sue makes her change her makeup to something less provocative, cover her wrinkles with cream, and cover her neckline with a scarf. However, even so, her body image complexes prevent her from leaving the house. She ignores a text from Fred, who is waiting for her at a restaurant, and instead reaches into the fridge for a piece of sweets. Her gluttony causes Sue to develop a strange fatty growth on her buttocks during the filming. She stops filming and retreats to her dressing room, where she finds a whole chicken leg instead of an anti-inflammatory. However, this is only a nightmare. When Sue wakes up, she finds the living room with evidence of Elizabeth's gastronomic binge, which is certainly taking a toll on her young figure. On the way to work, she calls the producers, but they repeat that they and Sue are one and the same. At the studio, Harvey calls the girl to tell her the good news. Her rating is very high, and the TV channel wants to make her the host of the New Year's Eve show. However, to do so, Sue will have to work harder, sacrificing extra time and the same drug. Day after day goes by, and the frequent use of the drug makes her feel worse, but she doesn't let it stop her. When the time comes for Elizabeth to retire, she notices that she has aged a lot due to her imbalance. Substance support offers her to stop the process if she is not satisfied with the result. But the woman, realizing that the changes are irreversible, does not want to give up the young version of herself, especially since she is reminded again that she and Sue are one, not two different people. Instead, Elizabeth has a hard time opening Harvey's gift, a cookbook, and prepares a bunch of dishes, while a talk show with her younger version of herself is on TV. The girl calls the other version of herself an old-fashioned dinosaur from another generation, which makes Elizabeth so angry that she even tapes the windows with newspapers to avoid seeing the banners with Sue. The reaction is not long in coming. Sue finds the apartment littered with traces of culinary creations and flies into a rage. She drains Elizabeth's body fluids with a reserve in order to avoid the exchange of bodies for as long as possible. 3 months pass, after which she becomes the host of the New Year's Eve show. The day before the filming, Sue notices that Elizabeth's stabilizing fluid is slightly spoiled. Support advises to start the process of replacing the mines for its secretion, but Sue is reluctant. However, without stabilization, the younger version becomes physically ill. She struggles to crawl into the bathroom to start the process and wake up Elizabeth, who looks very sick due to her imbalance. The situation is spiced up when Sue's boyfriend knocks on the door. Elizabeth barely manages to shoo him away with a hoarse voice. She calls technical support to say that she wants to stop the experiment. The next day, when the final kit is delivered to the site, she dresses up as her grandmother and goes to the address. After picking up the package and returning, Elizabeth is ready to stick the syringe into Sue's chest, but a voice in her head reminds her that she will be alone after this step. Nevertheless, she sticks the syringe in and pumps its contents. But at the last moment, following her old female intuition, she tries to save the young star. This fails, and in a panic, she brings in a mind-altering drug, which she also sticks in the wrong place. This leads to a curious result. Both versions remain on their feet and look at each other in surprise. Suddenly, they are reminded that they are one. Seeing the syringe for destruction, Sue rushes at Elizabeth and throws her against the wall. She responds by hitting the girl over the head with a vase and then locks herself in the bathroom. After a short chase, Sue kicks in the door and continues to beat the old woman. The injured Elizabeth crawls away with her last strength, but the younger version kicks her hard. Then Sue finishes her off with her feet. Elizabeth bleeds out a lot, but Sue completes the massacre and goes to the show's set. While trying on a dress, she suddenly feels sick. Her teeth fall out, giving her Hollywood smile a strange look. After washing off the blood, she goes out into the hallway, meeting the producers, for whom she tries not to smile so as not to give away the problem. As she tries to escape in the elevator, she notices her fingernails peeling off, and then her ear falls off, looking like she's in the final stages of a disease. Sue runs out of the studio and rushes home, where she finds a vial of disposable activator and injects herself, starting the next process. After a while, a new version of Sue hatches. Realizing that she can now only host Halloween programs, the monster calls herself Elisa Sue. To prevent anyone from calling her a horrible monster, she puts on a dress, makes a mask out of Elizabeth's photo, and applies makeup to match. After that, the monster returns to the studio, where she is freely allowed to enter by the men. The producers are already waiting for the main star to appear on the air. Eliza Sue steps into the spotlight to greet the audience, but her mask falls off, and everyone sees a face that no one would envy. The angry men begin to beat her, ignoring her pleas that it is still the beautiful Elizabeth Sue. The monster runs away from the studio, splattering the corridor with blood until it falls on the street, splitting into pieces of biomass. The part with Elizabeth's face crawls to her star on the Walk of Fame, where it spreads into a dirty puddle, catching the last happy memories of fan love.